IM8, David Beckham supplement brand, has just secured $1 billion in funding to help fund their customer acquisition cost. Is that a huge advantage, or are we looking at one of the largest paid media bonfires in consumer health? For those of you who are new to the story, essentially here's what's happened. A business called General Catalyst has essentially agreed to up to $1 billion in financing to help IM8 get more customers. Basically, this funding is based on their cohorts and projected LTV. And so it's a very unique or interesting way to structure an agreement like this. In IM8's case, they don't need to give up any equity or anything like that. And big picture is they're technically able to pay for this facility once they start making money from customers. So that's kind of the big idea. You've got this gentleman talking about it, and then you also have this guy talking about it as well. As mentioned, so finances up to 70% of IM8's customer acquisition cost. It's repaid from reference income, so basically revenue from those customers and a fixed gross margin. And then GC's share is capped. So what that means is after that initial sum is paid back, IM8 then gets the vast majority upside. Now, real quick, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Tobias Allen. I've been in marketing for the last decade or so. Present day, I'm CMO of the Free Humanity Group. Prior to this, I helped a company I led the marketing team through a Series A fundraise, which they raised a 22 million, and they've since passed a multi-9-figure run rate in GMV, so gross merchandise value on the platform. And then prior to that, I was the director of marketing for a business called Acquisition for over 2.5 years. So, in terms of talking about IM8, just big picture, and let me just take it off the screen. Or we can't. In terms of my thoughts on it, is I actually think it's a really interesting idea. However, when it was initially shared with me, my gut reaction was I just hope they don't press the magic button on Meta and just expect to fund it via Meta ads. And the reason for that is the risk isn't necessarily marketing side, although we can get to that in a second. It's actually, let's say they start scaling very aggressively using Meta as their dominant marketing channel, which for reference, this is currently what they're already doing. So if we go to Facebook Ads Library and we find IM8, what you'll see is just how dominant Meta ads is part of their strategy. So they are using a number of pages or accounts, and then even within the accounts, they're also doing something called shadow posting, which is they're running ads through influencers. So as you can see here, they've got an influencer and then they are shadow posting as a result of that. In addition to shadow posting, they've also got advertorials. So this is an example of a specific landing page. I actually think I broke it down somewhere else. So let me just quickly show you. As you can see, I map a lot of stuff out on this Miro board. But yeah, here we go. So this is kind of the core of their direct response strategy. They've got a variety of ads on Meta. So you've already seen that on the left-hand side over here. Again, as mentioned, their core brand account, but then also shadow posting. And then depending on the influencer, some of these influencers then send to custom advertorials based on the influencer. So an advertorial is a pre-framed page that can help increase conversion rates before you ultimately get to the offer, which in IM8's case is this kind of core daily ultimate essentials all-in-one supplement. So that's kind of what their funnel is. They're very much aiming for brute forcing CAC to LTV, so customer acquisition cost to lifetime value. Basically, it's like a bidding strategy where you build very attractive economics on the back end. So you try and make each customer worth as much money as possible, and then you use that as a war chest, throwing into Meta to be able to get more customers. Now, this strategy works, like, to be clear, and these guys have already pointed to it. Let me just see if it comments on IM8's growth rate. Yeah, there we go. So they hit 200 million in annualized revenue within 19 months. That's the power of having an effective CAC to LTV. You can essentially brute force advertising economics. Whether that works or not is not up for debate. If you can do it and you're a savvy operator, it's absolutely a strategy. And so that works. And against this $1 billion fundraise, potentially means that they can spend excuse the language, a metric ton, I'm not going to swear here, a metric ton more on ads in order to fund their customer growth, which is fantastic. But this is the problem. That strategy has issues when Meta's magic button suddenly disappears. And that, for me, is the biggest thing, like gut check on a concern of how they grow this business. And that's really it. Like, I don't, like, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's got a lot of potential to bring a lot of new users or new customers into their ecosystem. The biggest thing I'd worry about isn't the marketing side. It's actually what happens from a business standpoint if that growth channel suddenly disappears and they've used all of this excess capital to scale to that new level. Imagine, let's say 18 months from now, they've been pressing the magic Meta button, which, by the way, they are taking some slightly, let me see, GLP-1. Maybe they've got it, GLP-1. So they are taking, like, this is a little bit of a gray area in terms of calling out other supplements, things like that can cause some issues in the ads manager. That aside, let's say Meta vanishes tomorrow and they lose 1,100 ads. I'm not actually surprised that they're not running more ads here, to be quite honest. Anyways, let's say that disappears. 18 months from now, how many employees do they have? Employees does IM8 have? About 200 to 500 employees, or according to this one, 44 and 200 employees. Great, okay. So let's say they scale past 200 employees, and then this acquisition channel vanishes overnight. They will have some subscription revenue that helps them keep their lights on, some being relative, but this is the issue with using the CAC to LTV strategy, is if it goes away, you are, there's that saying, it's like when the tide goes out, so you see who's wearing swim trunks. This is one of those swim trunk moments. And so that's my biggest concern in this, is just from a business perspective, I really hope that they are thinking about diversifying their marketing mix to be able to at least have some backups or insurance policies against basically like Meta's magic bullet switching off. That's ultimately my comment. For context, I have seen this before, which is why I'm quite passionate about it, and I felt like I needed to address it or talk about it in a video. I've seen a business previously scale to about 140 million. Let's say it hired over 100 plus people, and then the Meta magic bullet disappeared, and the business couldn't move fast enough to be able to replace the dominant growth engine. When it works, it's amazing, but when it's switched off, that's when it can cause some issues. And it's not just these guys, like there are a lot of other businesses, but having seen that experience firsthand, and then also what it did to the founder, the team, just like just the amount of pressure and kind of like what was caused. For me personally as a CMO, it's also changed how I view building businesses too. So like I'm very much involved with, yes, making sure Meta is scaling, and we're still doing that, but also what are some other distribution channels that if Meta switched off, like we can still be sustainable or still stay alive. And so yeah, that's my widest concern when it comes to IM8 side of things. Cool. With that said, I'm just going to see if there are any comments that might be worth addressing that maybe you have as well as I'm going through this. Yeah, so the fixed gross margin is the part I would read twice. So that's the other thing worth commenting on, is they've previously looked at cohort data. So when I say they, General Catalyst Customer Value Fund, they've been looking at IM8's cohorts, or the values of the cohorts, based on how much a customer is worth, and then they're projecting that into the future. It's okay, but it's not like they've got a crystal ball. And the other thing is the value of the cohorts disappear over time, or they change as you scale to new levels. Colder and colder customers, the numbers change. And so depending on where IM8 are, like their numbers might change over time, and that obviously impacts a lot of this deal. So that's part of my concern as well. But the idea that they'll be able to maintain margins when they, let's say, go from 10 million a month in ad spend to, let's just say, 20 million a month in ad spend might change. Yeah, there we go. The whole thing is a house of cards and is going to zero. I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but because they've got subscription revenue, but there is a very real risk that's going to happen. And then, yeah, I'm not confident in this ends well. Yeah, that would be the general summary after watching this video. Is it's amazing, but like take it with a pinch of salt. And then anything here that's worth noting, line of credit. And yeah, this also indicates just how aggressive they're scaling. Like 1.4 LTV to CAC is actually not great in the scheme of things, but it's a sign that they're spending a lot to get a lot of customers. Cool, that's it for this video. Curious people's take on this. This is going to be one of my first videos on my YouTube channel. Basically where I want to go with this is like long term at least, is open up with answering questions on the internet based on what people have said. Next would be kind of like a CMO debrief, so maybe like a peek behind the curtain on what I'm working on and how I'm thinking about things. Third would be what would be another thing? Basically that, like it's just documenting in real time, just so I've got record, and I think that record could be quite valuable to anyone who's watching that. So yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think of this video if you see it at any point, and I'll see you in the next one.